Shall we begin? Are you ready?
You can start.
Are we
whenever.
recording?
Yes.
Are we? Oh, well, that's good. Let's start then.
Hey, everybody! Welcome to the Zelda Dungeon YouTube. We're back. We're together. We're here. It's time. We're bringing it all. Well, we're not going anywhere, but we're gonna wrap up talking about Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, we're not talking about Tears of the Kingdom anymore after this.
Yeah,
no,
this is the last time ever.
It's the end.
No, we're here. We're gonna talk about like kind of the end of the game, our overall feelings of the game as a whole, and of course we'll be back in future videos. There's so much in Tears of the Kingdom to talk about that we'll be diving back in, but it's been plenty of time, I think, like for the to let the game, we beat it months ago, right? Like most of us.
Yeah.
I 100%ed it months ago.
But I wanted there to be some time for, I know there's still going to be people who are picking it up over the next few years and stuff, just like Breath of the Wild, but enough time there. I hope some people have finished and they're ready to kind of hear about the end of the game and hear our thoughts on it, and we've let it marinate. So
if you're not ready, get ready, because we're doing it.
Get ready.
Yeah. So at what point do we want to start? We kind of talked in the last video, like we wrapped up, there's like kind of those big major quests, and I think really the only thing to do at this point, I don't even really remember how it's set up at this point. They just tell you to go go down.
Just like go down there
way.
and punch him in the face for us, and then you go down to what is it, Gloom's Approach or something?
There's a couple areas that are named different Gloom things. I believe Gloom's Approach, and then I think Origin of Gloom is like when you're like at
when you're way down
the final battle. But is there another one? Or is it just those two? The heart.
Gloom
when you're like
Gloom
diving
pit.
down to like the that section and it looks like a heart, like a anatomical heart.
Yeah.
Right. What is that? Gloom's Approach.
I think that's one of the. That's probably like Origin.
Definitely
of
a Gloom
or whatever.
thing.
We need a fact checker in here.
This is the Gloom room.
Cardiac chamber.
The Gloom hall.
This part of the game was sick, I thought.
It's so epic.
I mean,
Yeah.
just jump. I don't want to jump to the end really, but like just this whole like final like gauntlet was like a classic like end of the game enemy type thing, and like the atmosphere and everything was so sweet.
There's also
in very Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom style, I like that you can you don't have you can run around enemies for the most part if you want to. If you're just like, I need to save all my stuff for the final boss, you can there's a room with, I think it's like a Lionel that's like in a pit or something, and you got to get across the other side. But there's you can either just go right down there and find a way up, and there's Gloom hands, or there's like little hallways around the side that can get you around.
You didn't fight the Lionel?
I did not.
It's a Gloom Lionel too, so it sucks.
Yeah.
And I still did not have any Sundelion meals by the time I got all the way to the bottom.
Oh my god!
I stocked up
bad.
on Sundelion. I went out and cooked like a dozen Sundelion meals in preparation.
I thought I had enough, but
I just watched the last hour of my playthrough of the game, and the amount of Sundelion meals I went through in that last hour was just ridiculous. I
would always do a bunch of Sundelion ones and then a bunch of hearty
that's all you need.
Truffle or hearty whatever. Just one, that's enough to fill it fully, and then one extra.
Yeah.
I was maybe a little reset before the end, and
I was sort of expecting something. Yeah,
there'll be a nice Sundelion spot. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, the Sundelion garden right before Ganon's lair.
I mean, in traditional Zelda fashion, that would make sense in traditional Zelda fashion. You always get the fairy before you walk in the boss door.
Yeah, there's always the heart pots.
I wonder if there is like a hidden fairy fountain, not like Great Fairy Fountain, but like a little fairy area before going to Ganondorf there.
It would have been surprised. Because the other part of this is that like you get back to the area that you were in the beginning of the game, where you're all the murals and stuff, and you get to blow up the rocks, which show like full blown Demon King, and they show the reveal of Zelda becoming a dragon, the draconification
and
thing.
Not only
it
that,
would have been cool if they put something there.
Well, not only that, after you jump down from that location where like you first encountered the like carcass of Ganondorf,
the seal room or whatever,
seal chamber, that where everything crumbled. Once you dive down to that section, there's a single torch sitting there at the bottom, and I was that's Zelda's torch. That's the torch that she had with her that she dropped.
She was here.
I actually didn't connect that at first, and I was like, "What am I going to use a torch for?"
What do they want me to defeat Ganondorf? What is this? What is this? A master sword for ants?
It didn't even give me fire. How am I going to light this?
I think I did, like,
that was a nice detail.
I did like all the like encounters and stuff in this portion because, well, I felt like I had done a good chunk of just like exploring in the game in general, so I felt like typical, like I just based on past Zelda games like Breath of the Wild included, I felt like I'm probably gonna be like decently powered up, like for the end, not like completely overpowered. But I was like, okay, I didn't like I like cooked in all the meals I could and everything, but I was like, I'm gonna go for it and like, not try to like save my hearts or anything. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna go for it and really try it, and it made it even more fun because that's kind of how most of the both these games are. It's like there's all this stuff that you can engage with, and it just really depends on how you choose to engage with it. Like how fun it's gonna be. So I'm like, all this stuff is here. I'm gonna fight these guys. That Lionel fight was really fun. I loved it.
When I was my first time through, because remember I told you guys I came here nice and early just to do some exploring.
Yeah,
big surprise.
This was my first time seeing Gibdos, because I hadn't been anywhere near the desert. So there's a bunch of Gibdos walking around here. This is my first time seeing that.
Wow.
But it's just fun. 'Cause at that point I wasn't prepared for anything, so I was just like running away from everyone and anything. And then on my next time through, when I was actually doing it, I was like, all right, I did what you did. I actually fought everything.
I was just like, it's okay if I die, even if I was thinking if I get to the end and I have nothing left, like if I die, I wouldn't be frustrated to die like on my first attempt there, Then you kind of know what you're getting into. Yeah. So I was like ready. I was prepared to die, though I don't think I did. I think it made it actually feel even more like satisfactory when I beat the game, and I was like, oh yeah. I did it.
I mean, I kind of hate to always compare this to Breath of the Wild, but I mean, they obviously go hand in hand. And I mean, you look at this ending, compare it to Breath of the Wild's, where you can just like wander into the main chamber of the castle, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess this is the end, and it's like 10 minutes of like whatever. Whereas this, you have to go through a maze of gloom, fighting. You start, I mean, like the first main enemies that you see when you get here are the Horriblins, right? You get that, there's like that Horriblin room, and then there's the like room, and then you get to like the Moblins and the Gloomhands and the Lizalfos and the Lionel. Like it just gets worse and worse and worse. And then you eventually get to like the actual gauntlet before the final battles. But like, it's such a buildup, and it actually felt like hard. I mean, it was hard. It was a difficulty spike that I wanted at the end of the game. I mean, I think most people would agree that Tears of the Kingdom is just harder than Breath of the Wild in general. But that was like, that made it worth it for me. They saw the ending of Breath of the Wild and all of us complaining about that Dark Beast Ganon fight. That's just total BS. And we got to like experience a final battle that we really wanted. And so I think the buildup that they did was so good. I've appreciated it a lot.
I don't think this game really needed it, but like comparing it to Breath of the Wild, whereas Breath of the Wild has all of Hyrule Castle, this big sprawling dungeon where it's like that is a sweet build up too if you kind of follow like the natural path, but that's another thing where it's like you said, you could just naturally come up some sheer rock face and then get to the front door of the the main chamber room, and you don't really know, like, if I walk in here, is it going to do something?
Yeah.
So you might just walk in and accidentally trigger the main battle without even knowing it. Whereas this, like, maybe it could have been cool if it was more of like a full-blown dungeon, but I don't think it really needed it. But at least at that very end point, it's like you get to that drop off where you're looking down into a giant pit and like, okay, this has to be where this all starts.
I mean, if you're at that point and you don't think you're like at the end game area, like, come on. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I liked that it had like, well, something both of you mentioned. You mentioned two different things, but in both of them, it made me think of like this game, and it's all over the game, but at the end here too. Like they do things in Tears of the Kingdom that are it's similar to Breath of the Wild, but like in a better way, I guess I would say. Like I would, in most ways, like they do a lot of things better than this. And I think I kind of liked how the ending was presented in this, like the actual like location you go to, in that similar. Actually, I won't even say it's better, because Breath of the Wild, it was such a new, exciting thing, and I think it was like really cool. Like the first time we started playing it, like where you're told like you can just go right to the end, and it like challenged a lot of people to like come up with different ways to like from the beginning of the game just go in their underwear, or like ride a boulder that's been stasis in there. But in this game, I like that, like it has that still, so people can still do that. Like now, as they're playing, they can come up with all these new speed runs. But like my first time playing it, I felt like the experience was even more satisfying. Like when I I knew it was going to be something around there. I definitely expected that, but it just made it way cooler. Like that actual climb down deeper in the Gloom's approach or whatever.
I think the vibes for me for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom for the ends, it feels like you said in Breath of the Wild, we know Hyrule Castle, this is where you gotta go. We're assuming it's like up at the top main chamber room or something like that. And it feels like the whole game revolves around that point. And it's just like whenever you're ready to get into that point, that's when the end starts. Whereas I feel like in this, like, you are constantly descending and descending and descending. It's not like you can get to that final jumping off point from 12 different directions. Like you got to go through.
There's a path.
There's a path, and they intentionally direct you towards certain ways, going deeper and deeper and deeper, further down and down. And like once you initiate it, it feels so unlike anything from the rest of the game. It feels like you're descending into hell. Like,
yeah, it really does.
It's so crazy.
It was way more intense, like even after having explored all those areas in the depths and everything. Like
yeah, exactly. It's like you're in the depths, but it doesn't feel like the depths. It feels way more like,
I mean, it's deeper than any part of the depths.
Yeah,
you just keep going down.
Deepest depths.
Like something's not right about this.
I mean, at this point,
to a certain point where it's just like, you can't talk to the sages anymore. You can't.
You're too far.
It's a little scary.
Yeah. Just like, this is different.
I had done all the shrines before I went down to Gloom's Approach. I like wanted to complete them all. Like that was my main goal, to tell myself, all right, I can go do Ganondorf now. Like let's go do it. And even then, I mean, I felt like I'd conquered the entire overworld, but I still had like maybe only 50% of the depths filled at that point. I still had a lot to do. But I don't know. I still felt not fully prepared because it is just so menacing. It creates such a sense of dread going down there.
My heart was pounding.
Yes,
especially in the because like when you don't once you get to that point where it's like dive and you jump off and you're getting down to that area where it's like the final battles, that whole section actually starts where you fight the Demon King's army. There is a ton of air time where you're just sitting in the air, falling lower and lower and lower and lower. And my heart was like boom, 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 boom.
And the music is swelling right there. Like it's like getting more intense as you're going down. So it's this sense of like the music is like lifting you, but you're physically going down. And so it's this like weird emotion, like what is going on right now? What am I supposed to be feeling? Oh, it's so intense. But yeah, I mean, you get down, you see the torch, and it's like, okay, well, I know where I am. And you just keep following this path, and you see a dive spot, and you're like, there's more? even deeper? Where could we possibly be going? And it's so far down, but I love it.
Is that where that's like where the sages come in and stuff?
Yeah.
Yep.
They come in to help you fight the army.
Yeah, you fight the Demon King's army, and it's a very like Breath of the Wild style in that thing, and that's something that through my exploration early on, I realized is it functions the same as Breath of the Wild too. Whereas like if you've only done some of the divine beasts, they still like shoot Calamity Ganon with a laser, but it takes off less of his health.
Yeah.
Whereas like in this, when I first came here, I literally only had Tulin. So I went down there, and it does the cutscene, but only Tulin showed up, and only Tulin was with me fighting the Horde. Whereas he was the only aid that I had. So at that point, I started slashing a few guys, and then I was like, all right, I'm out of here, because this is clearly it, and I gotta leave.
And not only that, but if you had completed the army with just Tulin, you then would have had to fight 4 bosses before getting to Ganondorf. Yeah.
Really?
You have
to fight all 4 of the
you
bosses
have
again?
to fight all of the bosses. So you wouldn't have had to fight Colgera, but you would have had to fight all of the other main bosses.
That's so funny because like when that happens, where after you beat the Demon King's army and the bosses come back in, I was like, are they gonna make me fight all of these bosses all at once?
That's kind of what I thought too.
I was like, that would be insane, but instead they're like, oh, we got this, Link. You go ahead.
And that's it. If you don't have the sage for that boss, then you have to fight them. I have a friend who they got the first 4 sages, but they did not get Minoru, and they went down to Gloom's Approach, and that was the first time that they fought the construct. And fighting the construct for your first time without a construct is really hard. And so he said it felt impossible, but I haven't really watched Tears of the Kingdom speedrunning yet, but I'm very curious to see the way people are doing that.
Yeah.
That's like
people avoid the bosses.
Yeah, if you don't do the divine beasts before Ganon in Breath of the Wild, you have to fight the blights, which are just in general easier, but I mean, if you didn't do the divine beasts, you're also probably a little underpowered, so still pretty tough.
I think this is another case where it's like it's similar to Breath of the Wild, but I kind of prefer how it's handled here in the ending. Kind of what Corey was saying. It felt like it was still in like, I don't know, it felt like more just engaging, I guess, that like they were there fighting alongside you and not just like, oh yeah, we've shriveled off some of the health bar, you know.
Yeah,
that's just the whole game.
Of the laser beam.
Yeah, that's just the whole game in general, though. Having them being able to fight alongside you,
that was cool.
It's just such a great feeling.
I did like in Breath of the Wild. I did like overall like the champions like abilities and stuff more in that.
Yeah, I think so. I would agree.
So there were some really good ones in this though, but at some time, like actually a lot of times, like in the actual fights, it's like I'm not gonna go activate.
Yeah, it would have made more sense to have like a dedicated button with like a wheel or something. I think it could have been reworked instead of having to run up to each sage to activate a power. But overall, I liked having the sages by my side to battle with.
Fun.
Because it felt like I wasn't playing by myself. I was playing with my buddies, you know?
That actually tracks. Yeah. That's something I love. That's a little detail that I think is cool, is that actually tracks like narratively. Whereas McKenna, you were saying you get to a certain point low enough where their avatars aren't with you anymore and you can't communicate with them through the avatars. So it would make sense if you get to a certain point, they can feel like, uh-oh, he's out of our reach. Like, we got to go help him. And they're just like showing up in time to help you right at the end. You know?
Which they do this a couple times in the game, and I'm totally fine with it because it also happens at Phantom Ganon in the castle, where all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we're here to help you," and it's like, "Yay, they're here!" And the exact same thing happens at the Demon King's army, and I'm all for it because it gives me the freaking Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity when, like, you know, the new champions come in and help the old champions. It's like it's that same feeling. And it's the same characters. I mean, like, it's a good feeling. I love that. It just like warms my little heart.
It makes me think of the Resistance in Twilight Princess. Like, they blow up the one thing for you, but then they're just not.
And you never see him again.
We'll be right in, and then you don't see him.
No.
I really like how it kind of highlights the thematic differences between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where Breath of the Wild is more a game about isolation and loss, and Tears of the Kingdom is more
about hanging
about
with your
rebuilding and working together. The different
building cars.
Yes,
it's actually about farming. It's all about farming in the fields of Hateno, crops and seeds.
Coming soon.
No, but yeah, that is
Nintendo Switch 2.
The Switch 2 Pro, Super Nintendo Switch. Yep.
That is like the develop. I don't know if it was the director or Aonuma or someone in one of the interviews was talking about, like, one of the main motifs was actually like literally hands and like connection, which is like it's a perfect like duality with Breath of the Wild, because you're right, that is completely about like isolation and exploring and experiencing your surroundings, and basically all of Hyrule's a ghost town. And this is
your feet because you're running around.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, Breath of the Wild's about feet. You heard it here first.
Wow. Feet of the Kingdom, everybody.
Feet of the Kingdom.
You know, going off of the hands motif, which I love the idea of that so much. And I mean, we won't talk about this quite yet, but there is a moment at the end of the game that just really made such an impact on me that I don't have any tattoos, but I'm waiting for my partner Avi, who has been on the show before. He was here for the showing off the screenshots, which he's an artist. He's wonderful. I'm waiting
for that. Who's that?
My boyfriend Avi, you know my boyfriend. I am waiting for him to finish the game, which he still has not done, amazingly enough, so that he can see that moment. And I want him to draw Link and Zelda reaching out for each other to put right here as my first
he hasn't
tattoo.
seen it yet, though.
But he hasn't seen it, so I can't explain it to him yet.
If you're watching, stop watching.
It's too late.
Well,
too late to say.
Hey Avi, if you're watching this,
post Avi, fast forward like a minute.
I won't let Avi watch this.
Put that before we start.
Well, and then later we're gonna. Okay.
Oh gosh. Oh, just put this in. Cut it and post. We got it. Don't worry.
I would hope that since this is talking about the end of the game and Avi hasn't played the end of the game, you know, just
I think he can put two and two together.
We trust him to watch this at an appropriate time. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, spoiler warning.
Yeah. Put that first in post. Thanks. Don't worry, guys. We'll edit it in post. It's good. It's good. We got a whole team doing it.
Should we talk about the fight? Not the final fight, but for me, it was like the real final fight.
Well, can we talk about the hordes really quick before that?
Hordes, yeah.
Because I think I despise Lizalfos with the burning passion of a million suns. And the fact that I had to fight an entire army of just Lizalfos made me want to curl up in a ball and die. If I didn't have the sages there to help me, I would have maybe given up on the end of the game. I just hate Lizalfos.
I think that was actually pretty intense, and
I
agree.
Yeah.
I don't like walking up to the sages and activating their things, but especially when there were a bunch of people, I used Riju a ton. But it kind of was a pain because I would be like across the battlefield and be like, all right, where is she? And I'm just running through the crowd. And I'm like, all right, Riju, come on. And then just shock a bunch of them at once.
Yeah. I don't think I used any of their powers in the final area right there. I was just hacking and slashing and crying.
Cry.
It's like it's terrible. I loved it.
But the final fight. Well, there's a whole there's like a whole cutscene and everything before it.
Oh, this is where we get Ganondorf feet. A whole lot of Ganondorf feet.
I thought you said Breath of the Wild was about feet. How about them Ganondorf feet, huh?
It's like a lot of close-up shots of Ganondorf's feet. It's weird.
Some thematic elements carried over from the first game, obviously. I don't remember what he says to you here. I just remember it being like pretty sick.
I just watched
he doesn't say a lot.
Like, it's kind of like I'm sure we'll talk about this. Like, I don't know if we'll talk about it now or if we'll talk about it like in something else. But I think this is one of the best iterations of Ganondorf we've seen.
Yes.
I don't know if that's a popular opinion because I think people are going to hang on to whichever game is their favorite that Ganondorf happened to be in. I think this is so cool because he basically is popping up saying a bunch of bad guy stuff like how disappointing, like I have to basically stomp a weakling like you, and he's talking about like, but you know what, I'm gonna rule this land. That's what a king has to do. That's what a king must do. I must rule and like blot out all of the weaklings in the light.
Peace-loving weaklings is what he says. Jeez.
Yeah. But so cool because you see him and he's like doing his meditating thing and like he's just gathering his power in this weird. I don't know. How would you describe?
It's like a gloom throne.
He's simmering in the gloom.
Yeah, he's simmering.
Simmering.
He's been on low. He's been simmering on low for
he's
a very long time.
Yeah.
I got
coming to it at this point.
I got hints of like almost all the previous Ganondorfs in the past, but even like sort of felt like in that moment just some of his lines and stuff reminded me of just the brief bits of dialogue in A Link to the Past that Ganon has. Like he actually like does a little smack talk to you and stuff, you know. And properly menacing. And I was like, this is cool, but it definitely with the meditating and stuff like that kind of had like a unique vibe to him as well, you know. Presented in a new way.
It is like Ganondorf is always just kind of waiting for you in all the games that he's in, especially the 3D games. But like even compared to Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time, dude's playing the organ. You know, he's like he's doing something at his leisure, right? Twilight Princess, he's sitting on the throne like this, like bored out of his mind, literally just waiting for you. And in Wind Waker, he's I don't know if he's just sitting there over Zelda sleeping or if he's like doing just something. Yeah. But this, it's like you can tell he's literally like sitting there preparing, building up power for you. And it's scary. I don't like it. Yeah. And then he rehydrates just like that.
Yeah.
And he's really excited to fight you.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, this feels good.
Oh, okay. Actually, this is something that Nico, that you were saying. We were talking about how the trailer is playing behind us, and how the trailer had so many little tidbits that were actually in like the end game, the very end. The last thing he says to you before you start fighting him is,
"Oh yes,
do not look away. You witness a king's revival and the birth of his new world." And that's literally the line in the trailer.
It's in the trailer. I know. Whoa. It's so good too.
Oh. It is. That's incredible.
Round of applause for Matt Mercer, by the way, for the English VA. Like, Amazing.
Incredible.
So good.
I thought he did such a good job.
Yes.
Like that's Ganondorf's voice now.
Yes, because it's not over the top, like gravelly and like scary. It sounds like a real human person, but it's so menacing. Like it's just
a little bit more down to earth, but
yes,
still he's very.
If anything,
at the same time. Yeah,
it's how I imagined his voice in Wind Waker, because you do get to hear like his laugh a little bit and whatnot, and when like you hear like the you hear that, and to me like that's the way Matt Mercer did his voice in Tears of the Kingdom is how I've kind of just like always in my head imagined it, but I had no way of hearing it until now, and then I finally do, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's Ganondorf's voice.
The way I always pictured Ganondorf sounding was actually his voice effects from Super Smash Bros. Melee. Like there's a very specific inflection of like a really deep voice, but really sharp and menacing. And like Matt Mercer's performance as Ganondorf sounds like they took the same guy and just had him do voice lines. And I'm like, yes, man, that's it.
He's the one in Melee that goes, "Show me your moves," right? Show me your moves. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's Ganondorf.
What you said about the line, that last line, and like it being in the trailer and stuff, go like what I've felt like for a while is like you really, there is stuff in this game more so than the other ones, but like maybe it's more for me personally, but I feel like you can't really like I don't feel like I could be too spoiled on these games, because like one, I personally, I don't like the story and like plot beats aren't specifically what I'm playing Zelda for, but then on top of it, it's like I like, even with each game there's new stuff and everything, like there's kind of certain things you expect, and so like this, for example, this portrayal of Ganondorf, while having a unique sort of take on the character and everything, like I do kind of go in expecting like, yeah, there's gonna be some like epic face off before the final battle, and obviously like it was cool to like I just mean like experiencing it, like seeing it in the trailer, but then experiencing it in the context of having gone through like the whole lead up and everything. It like really makes the difference, I feel like just because you see I saw like that clip, it doesn't really matter. I just remember like back when the game had been out for a minute, people started to be like, man, they spoil stuff in the trailers. It's like, come on.
There's no context in the trailers.
To me, when I heard that line in playing the game, I was like, this is so intense. This is so good. I had heard it plenty of times. I had broken down that trailer a million times in my head. And yet, to me, that moment was still so incredible and so like, yes, I'm ready to destroy you. It's not a spoiler. It was their way of setting up this character before we got to play the game.
I think that actually feeds into it, because like that line, we all watched that trailer a bajillion times, and like we know that line, and I was playing through the game, and I'm like, when does he say the line? And then it's like the last thing he says, I was like, you said it.
It was actually always kind of, it was sort of like it felt like almost like a crossword. Like, you knew the word bank before playing the game. And then as you'd play, you'd see the little bits that you knew and you're like, oh, there's one, I found it, And that like the last 30 minutes of the game, it's like, oh, there's one. Oh, there's another. There's another. It's amazing how many very end game things are in the trailer that's playing behind us right now. Like, it's for amazing. Sure. But
it's interesting you brought up being spoiled, because like I obviously like we're all Zelda Dungeon people, and like Nico and I moderate the Discord, and there was a time before the games came out when it leaked and people were trolling, and there was at one point where someone was trolling stuff in the Discord, and I was one of the moderators who responded and had to delete their comments and ban them. And I was spoiled for Zelda turning into a dragon, and I was spoiled for the final phase of this last boss fight. And It was kind of disappointing, but even so,
there's a boss fight going on in Corey's room right now.
go, dude.
It's like, I remember that. Let me at him.
All right, buddy.
Oh my god.
Even so, like it was still so effective going through the entire thing.
Yeah,
it was done so well in such a cinematic way where they pull at your heartstrings and make you feel these feelings, even if you know what's going to happen.
I mean, you can play the entire game knowing that Zelda's going to be that dragon the entire time, and it's still the cutscene of her transforming into the dragon will always hit so hard.
Yeah.
Because
it's so horrific.
It's the story. Yes, it's the storytelling
element.
Yeah. I mean, there's no way you can watch that and say like, oh, like I already knew she was gonna turn into the dragon, so that didn't affect me. It's like, okay, you're awesome, cool, good for you, but like that moment is so powerful that even if you were spoiled on it, it doesn't matter.
It shattered me.
Yes. I was sobbing.
Yeah.
It's on video. It's terrible.
I thought it was crazy. I thought at first when I saw it, like, I did sort of feel like, oh, it's weird. Like, I just felt like the way actually they sort of set it up. At first I thought, oh, I kind of like expected this, you know, when they first mentioned it. But then what I realized, and it's after this fight, is that while I thought they were trying to set up Zelda turning into a dragon, what that was actually doing was setting up someone else turning into a dragon, which I should have expected. That was when like I just didn't even think about it. And then when it happened, I was like, holy crap. But I don't want to skip over
Gooey, I'm going to send you my reaction to the moment I realized.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
I will send it to you because it is truly, I just watched it. And my face goes from confusion to absolute horror in about a millisecond. And the change is just ridiculous. That moment just blew my mind. Somehow I did not even think that was a possibility. But, it's a possibility.
I guess that's the one thing that did this being spoiled did kind of spoil me on, because I made that connection beforehand, because I was like,
oh yeah,
I knew, I didn't like, you do it by eating the sacred stone. And like I saw Zelda, this was after I had already watched the cutscene of Zelda doing it. And then I was just thinking about it later and thinking about the spoiler that I had seen, and I was like, oh, that means that means that.
Okay,
well,
that's I assume
I
that's
feel like
what that meant.
It is something like you could reasonably suss out even not having seen that.
Yeah, if you're smart.
You know. Yeah, I was like, I was like, oh.
So wait. I want to talk about that so bad, but we should talk about the first few phases of the Ganondorf fight.
So he says something like, come, like, let's fight or whatever. And that made me think of A Link to the Past too, because when you go to fight Ganon in A Link to the Past, he goes, on guard!
On guard!
And so I was like, hell yeah.
He's like, are we sparring? Okay.
Why doesn't he say on guard more often?
I know, it would have been awesome if he said that, but maybe his vibe is a little more...
Yeah.
He's a little bit more...
He's more Eastern influence than Western, so...
And like does that where his health bar?
Not yet.
Yeah, so
okay. Phase 1, it's he rehydrates. They show his feet a bunch, and then it just like cuts
voice lines.
It's like very just subtle. It's just all of a sudden you're quietly fighting him. It's like it's a little awkward, but it's unsettling. It's just like, I'm fighting Ganondorf now. Like he's here, he's rehydrated, and I have to kill him.
I felt like tense. I felt like it was like very tense.
Yeah, it's very so tense.
The Phantom Ganon, but he's not like super slow and out of breath anymore. He's like, all right,
he's still
got
kind of
pep in his step.
Yeah, he swaps weapons a little bit. He's
a weapon master.
He kind of just like feels like he's just sussing you out. Like he's trying to figure it because, and you'll see in later sections of this fight, he feels like the playable character and you feel like the NPC in this fight because he does some things that I do not enjoy. But this first section, it's pretty easy. You just have to kind of battle him like you did the Phantom Ganons, and then he just kind of like is like, oh, this feels good, and that's when he does the snap, and that's
what I love about the first phase is that like they incorporate little dialogue lines while you're fighting him. Like if he hits you, he's like, I'm just getting started, and like little things sprinkled in like that. Just to make you feel like you're doing this one-on-one like samurai sword fight with the guy, you know?
He's a guy.
And
he's the guy.
It does.
It's not a phantom. It's the guy.
It's the weird one, yeah.
Phantom guy.
Full guy.
Or no,
Phantom Ganon.
Guy Ganon.
Guy Ganon, yeah. So it's like, it reminds me too of like what you're saying about him meditating and kind of powering up. Like it's almost like he's like coming to from like being in like his meditation.
Yeah.
He's like
he's taking off.
He's warming up.
Yeah.
He's de-rusting.
Yeah, phase 1 is the warm up for sure.
He's like, let me see if I can remember how to flurry rush.
And that's what he says. Like after you do that, he says something along the lines of like, I forgot what this felt like, the thrill of battle, the blood rushing through my veins, and I'm not even nearing the limits of my full power. And then he does the
snap
and turns into big scary demon Ganondorf.
And then the health bar just keeps going.
That was hilarious.
I genuinely think
jaw dropped.
That is like the funniest thing Nintendo has ever done. Nintendo's never done something this funny, and it's like breaking the fourth wall. It's fucking hilarious. I loved it. The best thing they've ever done.
It is funny, but it's something you would see in like Undertale or something like that.
100%.
Right?
Yeah. It's goofy.
But it's like
it
was so I don't know. In the moment, I wasn't laughing at it. That happened, and I was like,
right. I was like, oh no.
I was like, I don't like this. I do not like this.
Keeps going to the end of the screen, and I was like, oh my god.
It's like, this is gonna be harder.
I thought it might wrap around to the other side of the screen. I was like, no,
like another line. It like ribbons around. I was laughing because I was doing my thing of like, I went in like, not underprepared, but I was like, I'm not gonna go nuts, and I got through, and I was like, whew, okay, and like I was like, I feel okay, and then I did the first phase, and it's like I was pretty tense because I was like trying to, like I didn't take too much damage in the first phase in particular, but I was being careful, trying to dodge the gloom, and then that happens, and I was like, oh wait. I was like, this is the part I should have been really worried about, So I thought it was hilarious.
That's where I was like, all right, I'm down to 10 hearts now because Gloom has taken all of my other ones, and I don't have any Sunderlines, and I'm like, oh crap.
I was ready to die. I thought it was hilarious.
I died a few times.
Yeah.
Well, so
I got very good at the first phase.
Hey, there you go.
So then phase 2 is like, it's also kind of like the real full stakes version of the Phantom Ganon's fight in Hyrule Castle, where it's like he's got a bunch of his doppelgangers, and then your buddies come back to join you.
Yeah, they hop in.
Come back. They're fighting alongside you. And that's also super cool because it's just like chaos going on around you, and you can fight the doppelgangers, or you can just like dive towards the real Demon King Ganondorf. But also something I want to note that I think is sick and also feels kind of like
that's the real Ganondorf they're fighting. Oh no.
That sounded intense.
Oh my goodness.
That's what happens in phase 2.
That sounded like phase 2 to me.
Oh no! You got a cat.
There's a cat. There's
a
cat. Oh no!
We heard about this cat.
Poor
oh my god!
It feels like another game breaky thing that's like almost out of it's like in world, but also like very video gamey. Where like the gloom attacks, if they hit you, they shatter your heart containers.
Yes,
and they're gone, like fully gone, which is cool because it's like. That's a video game thing where it's like, all right, it's getting rid of your health permanently, but at the same time, it tracks with what happens with Link in the beginning of the game.
At the very beginning, yeah.
Where he gets rid of all your hearts, and it's like,
Oh,
okay,
it permanently takes them?
Yes.
It eliminates your heart containers.
The like dark purple gloom, it like looks a little different. It's a little bit darker, and it comes directly from him. So if it comes directly from him and it hits you, your heart instead of having the like turning gray and having it break, it like explodes purple and it's just gone.
It has a little animation and it shatters and then it's empty.
It doesn't exist anymore. You can't replace it.
Naysayers.
Yeah. Tell that to the naysayers, man.
There was a whole like debate on that, right? But we don't need to rehash it because it makes sense, and
it completely makes sense. It's the same power that he used at the beginning to take away all of your hearts and bring you back down to 2 or 3.
Even if it didn't make sense, at least they give an explanation for it, which is more than they do in like any other Zelda game that's a sequel.
Yeah.
It's just like, no, you have 3 hearts now.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal. It's not an issue. But that part is cool. Like you mentioned, the chaotic element of like everyone running around and stuff like that. That was cool. I can't remember
interesting.
If I like attacked the gloom or not, or the doppelgangers.
I definitely went for the doppelgangers. I don't remember why, but it doesn't really matter if you defeat them or attack him, because once that giant health bar gets halfway, he takes the doppelgangers out, and then he does this like explosion, and like your buddies are knocked out on the ground, and they can't help you anymore. Yeah, he does a force push, and everyone's just like knocked out with little stars around their head. And it's a little sad.
Knocked out with little stars, like they're like cartoon characters.
Yeah, like straight up, like literally.
That's awesome.
It's very cute.
And then after he does that, he looks you straight in the face and goes.
Yes.
No words. No words at all. He's egging you on. And I'm like, dude,
bad boy.
I know.
Just you and me now.
Yeah.
That's when you know like this is
BA.
it. And that phase is intense.
That's where he decides to start flurry rushing you.
This was awesome.
He responds to your flurry rushes with flurry rushes.
It blew my mind when that first happened. It blew my mind. Because
that cat's flurry rushing right now.
You are not allowed to do that.
Yeah, like that's my thing. That's what I do.
So it's chaotic.
So
this is how I beat you.
If you flurry rush, he can flurry rush you, and you have to flurry rush him back if you want to attack that.
I could never get the timing right on
I kept running away. When he would flurry rush, I would just do a little hop and run. I couldn't. I just avoided him. I was scared.
He does like an attack where his weapon gets stuck for a second.
Mm-hmm. And the heavy one where he brings it down.
Yeah.
It's the one time where it makes sense to not flurry rush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's another where he like dashes at you, so he's facing the other way for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And also get him then.
Like, it's incorporating the whole idea of him being like a master of all different types of weapons. So he's got like the spear, he's got his little bow thing, he's got his regular samurai sword, he's got the big club.
The club, yeah. He has 4 different weapons that he can choose from, and he just...
That was cool.
But the flurry rush thing, I think, is so sick, because that's like a... There's also like a little bit of in-world relevance to that too, because like I think it's explained in Breath of the Wild, where it talks about how Link is such a good warrior that sometimes it feels like time slows down for him. Which is a nod to his like flurry rush and the bow thing that he can do. And it also, in this game, it talks about how like awesome of a warrior Ganondorf is. And it's like, this guy can do that too. Like, that's not fair.
He's your match, yeah. And it's so cool that it's in the end of this game that they do it, because it's something for like 2 whole games and Age of Calamity, I guess, if you're doing it, where it's like, this is such a vital resource, like you have to do it. They do this a bunch in the series in different ways. Like I think of how in Ocarina of Time, the Ganondorf fight, it's like, oh, this really handy targeting system you've been using the whole game, you can't use it. In this case, it's like you can use it, but it's like it's the
He's
best
gonna use
version
it
of
against
that,
you.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's like you have to on the fly like develop a whole new strategy of like double flurry rushing, or like I think there was a way too if you could like not respond to his flurry rush but then hit him back like in a different way. I can't remember, but
you could probably, I don't know if you can parry or not some of these.
yeah,
Some of his, like,
I tried that.
Broke my shield.
Like, yeah, I had the Hylian shield and it said it was about to break, so I stopped trying to parry. I didn't want to break it.
I thought it was awesome, such an awesome fight.
That's tough because like I wouldn't say this full fight with Ganondorf, all 3 phases, I wouldn't say it's like the hardest thing ever. But some people,
it's tough, but it's not the hardest.
Difficult to flurry rush. Like some people just have difficulty doing that one mechanic, and it's like you gotta do it once, and then you gotta do it back to him again. You know?
Were you saying you developed a different strategy?
Yeah, I just like couldn't get the.
You just didn't do it that part.
Flurry rush in. It was. I think I maybe got it a couple times, but I couldn't get it consistently enough that I could beat him. So I started doing, the other things, the waiting for him to get stuck, or get turned around, or there's the one. I think does this happen during that phase where he's like powering up and you have the wind?
Yes, and you can like ride it up for a second.
Yeah. I remember when I finally beat him, I ended up, his health was so low, and I was like, I cannot die this time, and I just got out the Gibdo bones and just shot him a few times.
Yeah.
It's like I'm so close.
Yeah.
Whenever I tried to shoot arrows at him, he just swatted them away.
I think I probably did it
in bullet time.
Turned around.
Oh.
Okay. That's cool though.
There is one section in this final part where he will shoot the gloom at you and it'll follow you. Apparently, you can dead man's volley that, and I did not know because it just hit me every time.
Gloom projectiles you can dead man's volley.
I had no idea.
I never did that.
I didn't even think about it, even though it's like the main Ganondorf fight mechanic.
Yeah.
And I didn't even think about doing it because I was so scared.
I was like, oh, that's gloom. Can't touch that.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
No. But I mean, of course, it's like you think about it, it's like, well, of course you can. That's just how Zelda works, But
I think still got him. Battle had such a good flow from all the phases, like, and I really spent the first phase like trying to be careful and like master sort of the flurry rush, and then there's sort of the chaos that breaks out between, like a reset, and then you get to this, and I spent that first phase like honing, like trying to tighten up the flurry rush, and then they throw another thing in there, and I just felt like it had this great flow between all the phases. Like this is one of the coolest Ganondorf fights in any Zelda.
It just makes sense. Like it feels natural. It doesn't feel segmented, even though it literally is. Like it just the story progresses, and it's like, yeah, this is how this fight would go. It's like in Ocarina of Time, it feels like, okay, here's phase 1, here's the little running section, here's phase 2. Like that's like it feels very like cut and dry. Like that's meant to be phase 1. This one, he's like, oh, that was a good little warm up, and then he goes into section 2. He gets a little angry. He starts flurry rushing you, and then he gets really angry, and he does another thing.
This was gnarly when he like,
dude, it's so gnarly.
He swallows that thing.
He doesn't just swallow it. He shoves his own arm into his throat. If you like go back and rewatch this, he doesn't just like drop it. He shoves his arm through his mouth.
Which is like, why did he do that way? He just kind of wanted to do it that way. Right?
He's just an intense guy.
He's just showing off.
You're just gonna lose your mind. I guess you've already lost your mind. You're already like.
Yeah.
If you're putting your whole arm in your mouth, you've already lost it.
Yeah.
For
sure.
Leave a comment if you've lost it and you've put your whole entire arm in your mouth.
That's what he says. He's like, I'm not going to let a mere mortal defeat me. Like my mind, my body, like whatever it takes. And then.
I mean, it's such a classic like that's another reason I love this compared to say some of the other. This really felt like similar to Ocarina of Time, where he's just like, I'm using the last of what I got left, and I'm just gonna go like completely nuts and transform into this monster. You know what I mean? Like I feel like other games haven't actually conveyed that well comparatively. And I think
like we know
like Ocarina of Time.
What caused him to turn into this dragon, instead of it being like, oh, with the last bit of my power, I'm going to turn into a giant boar and stand in one spot while you shoot my stomach. Like, okay, that was an ending, I guess. But this one, we've already seen it happen. And it made sense. There was a reason. He used literally the last bit of his power and lost. We know what sacrifice he had to make this transformation, that he had lost his mind, literally.
It felt earned.
And had no control. And he was like, this is it. This is my last choice. And he just shoves it in and then explodes. And he has his own dragon music, which is scary. I don't like it.
I feel like this transition of like those three phases followed by the dragon phase, it's like the best of both worlds, because Ocarina of Time does have that thing of what you're saying, where it's like you have the cool showdown with Guy Ganondorf.
Guy Ganondorf, yes.
Where like it's cool, it's one-on-one, mano-a-mano, like duking it out with this person. And then he's like, last ditch effort, I'm gonna pull out all the stops just to stop you. Turns into this big old beast. But people have also always been very fond of like the one-on-one, like sword showdown. Like you're having a sword
like Wind Waker.
Guy. Like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. But those sacrifice the coolness of Dark Beast Ganon, or like
big beast or something.
Like the monster is bad, I think.
In Wind Waker, like I like fighting Puppet Ganon, but it's like he just turns into this big puppet and then is like, okay, I might as well just use my swords. And then in Twilight Princess, he turns into a big boar that you basically just flip over like he's a goat.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like,
what it is.
Well, finally the finality of the goat
Good thing I'm a goat pusher.
Thank goodness I was an Ordon Ranch hand.
I got all those goat ins, and then I I could defeat the Ganon.
But this is the best of both worlds, because it delivers that sick one-on-one sword fight showdown, and I'm gonna pull out all the final stops.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And it doesn't need to be too like complicated. Like I felt when I beat him like one-on-one, I felt like so satisfied that I did it. And this final fight, it was similar to Dark Beast Ganon in Breath of the Wild, in that it's not really hard.
No.
It's more they're going more for the spectacle. But this one worked a lot better because I think the thrill of, similar to Colgera, like just flying around and like stuff it's just way more thrilling than, you know.
And the Zelda team up.
The Zelda team up is cool.
I was thinking about this before this, like what makes gameplay wise, what makes the Tears of the Kingdom one more interesting. And I think it is because it's like, even though you are like flying around most of the game, it's compared to
He's just playing around.
I'm debating, is this like, do we edit this out, or do we
keep it? Keep it in.
We should make a blooper reel.
We'll have a blooper reel.
It'll be in the video.
Blooper reel of every time I get interrupted by my animals. Breath of the Wild, when you're fighting Dark Beast Ganon, you're doing the same thing that you've been doing the entire game, which is riding around on a horse and shooting a bow. Which is like, all right, cool. You know? Whereas like it
is cool.
It's compared to Tears of the Kingdom, where you're flying around the sky with two dragons that are like battling each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that is way more interesting.
Oh yeah.
The flying just feels good and it feels fun, and like the epicness of the moment felt properly built too. Whereas like when Dark Beast Ganon shows up, I don't like that version of Ganon. As I said before, and it's because in both of those games, it just feels like it's there because Ganon is a big pig and you got to fight a big pig. It feels like random almost.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Like, okay, you know, whereas
Guess
this, like that, it's that thing before where like I thought, oh, I saw Zelda turning into a dragon coming, you know, but then I realized it sets up this end moment so well for the final showdown that, like, jumping ahead, talking about the story a little bit, like it feels like it like changed the context of like what that part of the story, like of Zelda transforming, what people want it to be compared to like what it actually is. You know, it's like it's very important, but it's not meant to, like, I think, hit the same beat in the way people are thinking.
Yeah,
like I think it's more set up for this part as opposed to like people wanted it to be like the final sacrifice, but that's not what that is. But I'm sorry, I don't mean to jump out of line.
We'll get
here.
there. Get to that.
That's all to say that all that made this fight, you know, like feel really epic and like earned.
Oh yeah,
I struggled for a moment. I was like trying to shoot the
yeah.
And like,
no,
oh,
I
gosh,
I rewatched myself playing this, and I did it entirely with bows and arrows, and I'm like, Nico, just slash it. Come on, don't be dumb.
Especially
I was dumb.
Oh, I want to get on that guy.
I know, it's like the game kind of conditions you to ride the dragons.
I know I can stick on dragons now, so I'm gonna slash this guy's back.
Yeah, I did, and I was like, oh no, it's hurting me, and then I ran away.
There's even cooler like gameplay aspects in this though, like especially towards the end. I think when you have to get to the actual tier of light on his head, like Zelda shoots you way high up, and then he's looking straight up at you, shooting those like gloom balls.
Yeah,
and you have to like do the like flying in the sky, diving, dodging all of them.
It's fun.
Sick.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's like Colgera.
It is like Colgera.
Everything's like Colgera. Everything comes back to Colgera.
Yeah.
Oh, another tie-in actually that I forgot to mention for Ocarina of Time is that the Ganondorf fight battle theme is literally using Ocarina of Time Ganondorf's battle theme, which is
that's
sick.
Yeah.
Well, there's Ocarina of Time, I feel like, is one of the most represented past games they reference.
For sure.
Which, I guess. But
I mean, with Ganondorf, this is, I mean, the closest other Ganondorf to this one would be the Ocarina of Time Ganondorf, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so like it's very similar.
Usurper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally have the moment of him like bowing down to the king.
Yeah, that's like
exactly. Like, come on. But yeah,
anything else in the fight?
I mean, there are just some really epic moments. Like they have some really good shots. The blood moon is going on after you defeat all the like parts on his body, and that blood moon is like gigantic. It's huge. Oh,
that's so like what he says when he's going into that. He's like, "I'll do whatever I can to basically like blot out all the light and just make everything darkness." And it's scary because like right at the end, it's like the sky and everything is turning like red and dark, and it's like it just adds to the atmosphere of like it's going down.
Gosh, but yeah, you get to climb onto the stone, and it gives that selection for final attack, and you hit that button, and Link just goes in with the Master Sword, and just shatters
classic, stab him in the head.
So good
situation.
Always satisfying.
Yeah.
I love it when Ganondorf gets stabbed in the head. It's my favorite.
That's my preferred way of
the chest. Dying. The chest is like, it's okay, but the head, I like it right there,
right in that.
So Avi, if you're watching, skip ahead. And Nika,
he watched this entire thing.
He missed the warnings before.
But skip ahead because Nico's going to describe the tattoo you were thinking about, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of stuff that happens.
Sorry.
The anime explosion?
The biggest explosion.
Like,
it's like a nuke drop.
It's I have watched compilations. I've watched compilations of people reacting to that explosion. It is hilarious. It is way too big.
I love it though. It's so cool.
It's so funny.
Well, it's so sick too, because it's just like you're like, oh, okay, he's gone. It's not like a Breath of the Wild like big explosion, then
Like,
into a little tiny ball. It's like, no, this dude
maybe
is obliterated out of existence.
No, yeah, the most anime explosion ever.
And then the objective pops up: destroy Ganondorf complete.
You're like,
yeah, it's like
there's two moments like that at the end of the like the quest checked off, and both times I'm like,
love it.
Oh, I like it. I like what you did there.
I did it.
What were you gonna say? Something was funny?
Oh, I was saying that was the second funniest thing that happened in the game.
The health bar and the explosion.
The health bar. Oh, my bad.
Nintendo was a little funny with this ending. Like, it's epic, but I like it.
Wow.
But then, yeah, so you kind of, you know, you and Zelda are just kind of riding around and go into this, your little hand starts glowing and you're like, oh, what's happening? And you go into this like light realm for a little bit. And this is, I think, a very like divisive part of the game for a lot of people. I love this ending more than I think anything in the world. Because you get to see Zelda in her big dragon form sleeping while Link is floating there looking at his glowing arm of Rauru, the origin of the right arm, right? And yeah, he's no shirt, but to show off the arm, of course.
Important to know.
And then Sonia and Rauru appear, and I personally think it's because, you know, the secret stone had been destroyed, Ganon's power was no more. They were finally able to, you know, come back and use their combined power of light and time to aid Link to do like the ultimate recall is really what it is. And that's what's happening. That's exactly what it is.
What they're doing. It's like it does the same like light effect, and even when like Zelda's turning back to herself, you can hear like like tick-tocks in the back. Not tick-tock.
And it's
you hear the clock in the background.
You wouldn't believe what's about to happen. The TikTok voice in the background.
Rauru and Sonia are back.
OMG.
Guess who's back?
Oh my god.
Bring back your princess.
But yeah,
that's cool.
The three of them work together, and the combined power of light and time from Sonia and Rauru, but then like Link's
hand.
Like, yeah, he's like the, I don't know. Yeah, he's something.
Well, he's got the arm.
It's something they touch on in the post-credit scene, that they're like, how did this happen? Like, what caused this? But Link is like this.
Mineru is basically just like, says nothing. She's basically like, I think it's probably because Sonia and Rauru use their time and light powers combined. And it's like,
with Link, it's like, okay.
Insight.
But yeah, the three of them work together, and Zelda does a little sparkle. We hear the TikTok voice, and then Zelda is just floating there. And
Link's
Sonia,
arm is back to normal.
Link's got his trusty right arm back.
Which that's what, like, if anyone was wondering, because I could also see people playing this and not connecting it to it being recall, and just being like, well, why does that just fix everything? Why is Zelda just back to herself? And why
how
Link's
convenient. Zelda's back to normal.
It's rewinding them to
everything
before this stuff happened. So Link's got his arm back, and Zelda's not a dragon.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I didn't even need an explanation myself. I was just like, yeah, okay.
No, it's cool. Not a big.
It's the end. We did it. Yeah. But really, not because well, there is a little bit of just like, personally, I don't care that much as long as it's cool. Like, it's not really what I personally am looking for anyway in the game, for it to like all logically make sense. But on top of that, it just from like what the quest of the game was, and what what you set out to do, like, it had a very thematically or like a very like fulfilling ending, similar to the Ganondorf thing when you finally get it and it's like find Zelda complete. I was like, nice. Like I felt like I did it. Like me personally, the player, I was like, I did what we set out to do, like in the beginning of the game, you know.
So good.
And it really then emphasized how the end, similar to Wind Waker or Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, like they all have these endings where you and Zelda team up, and it's not about you it is about you the player, obviously, but like you Link the character, it's about the two of them teaming up to defeat Ganondorf. And I felt like the fact that you both do it and you're both there at the end emphasizes that. I could see it. You know what? I would have been also fine if it ends with you floating around on Zelda and it's like find Zelda complete and you're just friends with the dragon now.
That could have been the ending. It really could have.
That could be cool, but it didn't make a difference to me at that point. I guess, you know.
Could have just been like the bittersweet version of like it was her sacrifice. And like I think Champions Cast or Andy talked about how like it felt like some people might feel like it's kind of cheapened by the fact that she comes back. And like, I feel like that's not really an issue because it's about finding Zelda and you find her and she comes back and like you have her again.
She still made the sacrifice.
Like she made the sacrifice completely believing that she wasn't coming back.
Yeah. Well, and like, it's not like, I don't know about you guys personally. I wouldn't have predicted like, oh, she's going to come back for sure. Like if
I was sitting there like, God, I hope so. You know,
okay, yeah, they could probably have some reason why she comes back. Like you're saying, Goo, it's not a big deal. It doesn't matter what the explanation is. Really,
the way I see it is, you know, they said it was impossible, but everything is impossible until you do it.
Yeah.
Especially in yeah.
Only I mean, recall is like a main ability in the game, so it made sense.
Yeah. Minoru is the one that's like we've only heard about this once from Minoru, and she's like, impossible, no, can't be done. And then she's the one that's like, I hypothesize that it's because these two using their powers, and it's like,
well, I mean, at this point we can only assume that it had been done only 3 times before, and no one had really done anything about trying to turn them back. So if anything, they worshipped the dragons. So it's like, well, whatever. They just let them do their thing. So they never tried to. I'm sure if Sonya and Robert really wanted to, they could have been like, yo, Dinral, you want to be a girl again? But they just let them be dragons.
That could be maybe the DLC that they said that's what gonna do.
That's what I wanted so badly, was the explanation of those, but they said no DLC.
The DLC starts with like, now that we know it's super easy to turn back dragons into people.
Link is just going around. Link his hands on.
You get a new ability, which is like
Ultra Recall. De-Draconify. Can you go up to like the Gleeok and be like what would happen there? Like, do these count?
3-headed person.
At the end of Ocarina of Time, they have a big party at Lon Lon Ranch, and the Kokiri are there hanging out. And why can they do that? Because it's the end of the game, and we're all partying because we won.
It's the only way.
Because Malon and Talon threw a rager, and they wanted to go. That's why.
They're like, oh, sick. We can break the rules for this one.
We'll be all right.
Guys, they're gonna play Darude Sandstorm, guys. We have to be there.
I think too, like it. So I mean, they are important, but I think there's like an overemphasis of the Dragon's Tear memories being like the only thing that counts as story in the game to people.
Yeah,
not at all.
I think that's too why like the dragon thing, and whether that is Zelda's sacrifice or not, is like I think they're very important, but like it's not like, I don't know. I think it's because it's not like a typical like game storyline that we're like a lot of people are accustomed to. But yet it's actually like there's more like story in this game than like a majority of Zelda games.
It really is.
That's kind of what I mean about like about Minoru, like we hear a total of like a sentence about draconification in the whole game because it's in that one snapshot that happened to be the Dragon's Tears. It's not like, I don't know, it's that's the only time we ever hear about it, so it's just like, okay, Minoru said it, so write it in stone and she couldn't ever possibly be wrong.
Yeah.
You know? Like, of course she could be wrong.
What
like,
is Minoru now?
Yeah, right?
Yeah. It's just Minoru. Whatever.
She's an idiot.
You do
hey, whoa.
where you find out the 8th heroine was a dude.
Yeah, a dude!
Yeah,
what?
A dude!
Quest. Like, that's the same logic as if people went through that side quest and was like, no, because it's a heroine. They said it was a heroine.
There's a giant fake news side quest.
Yes. So much of this game is about like learning information that everyone thought was wrong.
Classic Minoru spreading fake news.
Oh my god.
So anyways, you're flying in the sky.
You get this really cool shot of like
the
wind. Yeah, Avi, skip ahead. The wind rushing by as Link kind of just like passes out. And it's like what's gonna happen? And he wakes up face down, falling out of the sky to this epic, probably like the coolest moment in a Zelda game, in my opinion, of diving
trailer shot
to save Zelda, where at the very beginning of the game, she was falling and you couldn't catch her and you failed. And now she's falling and you literally cannot fail, because if you keep falling, it doesn't actually, you kind of stop falling. It's just like it's an endless loop.
What
fun fact, but
Zelda falling on YouTube videos.
Whoa. Saving Zelda.
But you get to dive down. The music is so epic. It's just truly so good. And you get to do that final reach for Zelda as she's still like limp, falling out of the sky. And that moment of Link's hand reaching out for Zelda's like limp hand, that's what I really want Avi to draw for me, because I don't want their whole bodies. I literally just want their hands about to touch.
That's what
right
the game's
here.
all about.
Because that's what it's about. It's about reaching out for each other. It's about like partnerships. It's about asking for help. It's about growing, and it's the hand motif. That's what it is. And you catch her, and you don't just fall together. If you look really closely, Link is like fully like protecting her. Yes, fully cradling her. And it is the sweetest thing. And then they fall into the water, the same pool that you started in.
Which would totally kill them.
And they die.
Totally kill them. But we have learned from the very beginning, it's okay.
Cradle of life.
You can fall from miles in the sky. As long as you do it into a pond, fine.
Yeah.
This is Hyrule water, okay?
Yeah.
It's
Kids,
different
don't
than
try
regular
this at
water.
home.
Yeah. Don't jump from floating sky islands into a pond, okay? Don't try that at home.
No, I agree. This is one of the coolest moments, at like one of the best endings. It's so, I was bawling doing this. I was just playing the most bombastic version of the main theme, and Zelda's down there, and you just like dive, plummet, like, I need to save her. I need to save Zelda finally. And this
go get your girl.
Whole game has been leading up to the, where's Zelda? Where is she? Where actually is she? Where is she? We need to bring her home. We need to get her back. She's right there. You dive down, clasp hands with her, protect her, and then once you get down, you have a nice little conversation with her, and she finishes by saying like,
I'm home. I'm home.
And we like people. I think some people criticized the voice actress in Breath of the Wild. I never got that because I always thought she was excellent.
I love her.
But her performance in this blows her performance in Breath of the Wild out of the water.
I think she learned a lot in Age of Calamity. Because there's a lot of voice acting in Age of Calamity that she does. More than Breath of the Wild. More than this game.
I like the voice acting in this game. I don't know if I remember not like enjoying it in Breath of the Wild. But especially because like it was only in like certain spots.
Yeah.
And this game had that still too. So I like enjoyed it more. Like the voice acting in general, but I do wish they it was like more voice acted. If that makes sense.
I agree. I just want there to be more. If they're gonna do it, like go for it. Like full on.
I do think there is more in this game in general than Breath of the Wild is mostly relegated to just like memories.
I didn't feel that awkwardness. Like there was I think it still had this, but it felt even more awkward in Breath of the Wild where someone would be like, "Hey, Link," and then you hit a button and it goes, scene transition.
Yeah.
It's like they still had that, but it wasn't as jarring in this. Maybe because I'm used to it, or they just handled it better. But I don't know. There was definitely more voice acting for sure.
But in this final cutscene, like Patricia Somerset sells it, like the
so
shakiness
much
in her voice and the realization of what it is and what's going on. It's just like breaks my heart, and it just like, especially if that performance is selling it for you, then it's like, yes, Zelda's home, and then that's when you get the find Zelda complete.
I love that. Yeah,
it's so really good.
So good.
Is there anything else? And then they're like the end, and there's credits.
They do the end in the credits. If you did everything,
there's not a cool party.
That's something Zelda's really fallen off on. Lately.
More Darude Sandstorm.
If you do the Lurelin Village quest.
That's true.
I want to see the quest where we see everyone. I want to see S2 shaking it with.
Oh yeah, that would be good.
S2 and King Dorephan are like doing karaoke and.
Yeah, I want a band.
Oh my gosh, I want Muzu. I want to see Muzu dancing.
Oh my god,
grumpy old Muzu.
But there's like the post credits thing we talked about. A little bit.
Which is interesting.
Like, all the sages plus Pura, because she wanted to tag along, are up on the Great Sky Island with the spirit of Minoru
at the Temple of Time.
Yeah.
I would like thought about them all traveling up there. It sounded fun.
I like they all have their own little thing to say about it, and Yunobo's just like, I've never been this high before, Goro. Like, yeah, no duh, dude.
Actually, you technically have as a spirit.
There you go.
Actually, I bet is Death Mountain taller than that? I don't know. No, I don't think so. No, it's not.
Great Sky Island is way up there.
That's true. The Great Sky Island's super high up there.
This is a good game.
I loved it.
Yeah, GG.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk right now for the Game Awards coming up, and everyone talking about games that they think are going to be nominated for Game of the Year. Big surprise, right? I mean, Tears of the Kingdom will be nominated, and I'm sure it'll show up, but I'm there's a lot of competition this year. But I mean, it's Game of the Year material for sure.
It's my Game of the Year and my heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably one of the few new games I'll play this year. So.
Yeah.
I'm mostly playing Nintendo 64 games.
New AAA game I'll play this year.
Yeah. Follow Flashback 64 Pod on Twitter and Blue Sky.
We're playing games from the 90s.
But where do you think about the game overall in context of like the Zelda series, I guess? I'm not saying you have to like rank it necessarily, but
I mean, recency bias
what do you think?
Always says a lot. But right now it's like number one because it's like all I want to think about. And it was like life-changing. I haven't played a Zelda game in a while that actually felt life-changing. I mean, I guess Breath of the Wild too, but this one it hit me in the heart more than Breath of the Wild did. Breath of the Wild was like, whoa, this is cool. But Tears of the Kingdom was like, oh my God, my poor little heart,
Sure.
So I'd say right now it's number 1, and it's up there with the greats.
Breath of the Wild, like I had Breath of the Wild, it's like in the same spot Breath of the Wild was when it first came out, but I feel like this knocked Breath of the Wild down a few spots because this is something that I think I think you and Mossies have both like iterated this point in a few different videos of like Breath of the Wild being almost like a proof of concept version of how to do like a full-blown open world 3D Zelda, fully exploration based type game. And like at the time I was like, yes, but I think there's more to it than that. But with Tears of the Kingdom coming out and basically just being Breath of the Wild but better, in my opinion, I think it pretty much addressed almost all of the issues that I had with Breath of the Wild and added on, in my opinion, one of the best stories in a Zelda game. That's what I think. Some top tier Legend of Zelda moments from the entire franchise. One of the coolest iterations of Ganondorf and one of the best final sequences of any Zelda game. And it still had all of that Breath of the Wild, do it your own way, explore out of your mind DNA, with all of the crazy new mechanics that basically just take that and even more so like twist it on its head. Be like, you could do this in any number of ways. You could craft something, you could, I don't know. We've talked about the cool gameplay stuff, but it's up there for me. It's right now, I think recency bias is definitely factoring in, but I think right now it's probably number 2 or number 3 for me. Favorite Zelda games.
Okay. I know that's yours.
This is definitely on top for me right
Tears
now.
of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild.
Right with Breath of the Wild. It doesn't. I actually think it gives me more appreciation for some of the emptiness of Breath of the Wild. I say emptiness, but I don't really think it's empty the way a lot of people say. Like I don't find exploring Breath of the Wild when I'm not finding items every 5 seconds for that to be empty. I really enjoy exploring just for the sake of exploring. So to me, they're kind of they are they do go hand in hand in a lot of ways, but they are 2 separate concepts to me, and two different experiences. I think Tears of the Kingdom has a lot of things that I wanted there to be in Breath of the Wild, but now I feel like I can go back to Breath of the Wild and have it be its own separate experience.
Yeah.
I
think they're a good two-parter. I mean, obviously that's what their story is and everything, but like I like Tears of the Kingdom like a lot more in most ways, but I do like the immediacy of Breath of the Wild a lot. Like it's a little bit more simplistic. Like the tutorial's much shorter. Like, you know, it's just like so much. It is like you kind of get down to it. Like, it doesn't have like building things. You know what I mean? So it is just more about. It's a foot game. It's about running around and climbing things. You know, whereas like this one, it gets a little bit more. There's just a little bit more, and there's like more going on. You know what I mean? Like there's storylines in each of the regions in Breath of the Wild, but these are more in depth. And so I think there's like a pro and a con. And overall, I think more of a pro in this game because I like it more. But there is like something satisfying too, I think, in Breath of the Wild about just like I feel like it's a game that's slightly better for bingo, for example, even though we did it with Tears of the Kingdom. I think Breath of the Wild, it just feels more right that you start and they're like, here's where you want to go, dude. Get to it.
Yeah.
And it's about you like kind of they both are that way, but you just don't know it. So maybe if I play it again, I won't feel that way, but I don't know. I think Breath of the Wild, there's something about it that appeals to that aspect more. But overall, like I like Tears of the Kingdom a lot more. I don't think either's empty. Like
No.
I think the Tears of the Kingdom had this a lot, and I've mentioned a lot, but my favorite thing in Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom is when you get a quest that's really just, hey, you need to get from here to here, or in Tears of the Kingdom, you need to get this thing from here to here. And I think you have to have land to traverse to do that. And I think it would be worse if it was like constantly populated with treasure chests and stuff. Like I like that, but it's like, oh, I have to like climb this, like this, go across this field and climb this hill or whatever, and it's like it's okay that there's nothing there. They
have you ever been outside? Have you ever touched grass? Usually fields are just fields. They're not just full of treasure chests. And
why aren't there shiny things every 10 feet for me to press A and get a thing?
Yeah, just play Pokemon.
Question marks.
You can do that in Pokemon.
Like it does feel a bit more of like like a space you're kind of like exploring around and like
yeah. Well, if that's what you want, there are other games. Plenty of other games.
Yeah, it's Assassin's Creed or whatever. You can
Genshin.
Go check off. Yeah.
What you were saying, McKenna, about how like they are different, like different experiences. I think that is true, and that is one of the main reasons why Breath of the Wild, even though I think Tears of the Kingdom is basically like Breath of the Wild 2.0, I think there is an element of Breath of the Wild that is lacking in Tears of the Kingdom, which it might be because it's the second time we're in that overworld. It might be because you can get around any way you want. But Breath of the Wild feels much more of almost like a survivalist style of exploration-based Zelda game, where you start off with this is true with Tears of the Kingdom, but you start off with nothing, and you have to go through the trials and tribulations of being like, let me pick up a tree branch, and this is my weapon now. And I have to go collect food, and I have to survey the land and find out, oh, I want to get up to that rock face, but I don't have enough stamina. So how do I plan out how I can climb? A lot of that stuff is immediately negated in Tears of the Kingdom once you have the ability to build enough things. Because then it's just like, or it like once you learn, it's like, oh, let me lift up this thing and then bring it back down and then use recall on it, which basically just gives me a lifting platform. Like there are so many ways to jerry-rig your way around those obstacles, whereas in Breath of the Wild, it was like, because it was a little bit more simple, it was like, no, sit down and think about how you're going to do this. There are multiple ways you can do it, but you got to think of a way to get it done, There
were, though, like, I felt like slightly more complex issues to deal with in this game. There was plenty that, I totally, like, right away knew the way to break it. But then there was a lot of things that were not like that. And
some of those shrines...
There were some awesome puzzles in this game.
Oh, the puzzle design in these shrines is phenomenal, especially because the tools that you have are very different, and it's so good.
Even the dungeon puzzles, it's like a whole different ball game, even compared to I've always prided the Divine Beasts for having excellent level and puzzle design, even if they are samey and lacking in variety, but they have really clever puzzles that use the mechanics super well. But like even the ones in Tears of the Kingdom's dungeons, it's like similarly environment based and mechanics based, but using these cool new abilities in different ways,
I was thinking recently about like a specific, like if I was making a ranking or whatever for certain reasons, I was thinking about that. And so I did, kind of write stuff down. And so this isn't my favorite Zelda game. Where I ended up writing it in that moment was I had it just outside of the top 5. I had it at number 6. But one, I'm extremely biased towards the Zelda series. So and all the games I had in number 5 have all at some point been like number 1 on my list or in the top 1, 2, 3. And if they're all like ones where like I personally would understand an argument for any of them being like the best game of all time. So like
Yeah.
me putting it 6 doesn't necessarily, you know, like I think it's
Doesn't mean it's a bad game.
I actually, yeah,
Zelda.
the scope and everything, like it's definitely different than like my favorite games. And I think I'm still a little bit like I prefer this style slightly more, but I will say like especially I think it's because I played Breath of the Wild where I like because it like almost prepared me for this, because Breath of the Wild, it was like it wasn't hard or anything, but it was like just like, oh, this is like such a different experience. And like I almost like
different.
played the first time I played it, like I immediately wished I could like play it again, and play it a different way, because I was like, oh, I like there's some things I wish I did differently. And I went into this game with my specific like, this is how
follow
I want
the
to tackle this
paths,
game.
find the stables.
I want to like see the things, you know, I'm supposed to see. Like I felt like the first time I played Breath of the Wild, it was like it was complete, but it was incomplete, you know what I mean? And so like anyway, that's to say like I basically all the way up until the end I was loving this game. I never got like I saw some people be like, oh, it's too long or anything, stuff like that. I pretty much was, it took me a long time, but I was into it the whole time, and I think
I
it's a
loved
great
watching
game.
you beat the game. That was
fun, and like that
Yeah.
made that final fight even more tense, because it was like, oh, people are watching me. Like,
yeah, we were sitting there. I was sipping my drink, and I was like, was it gonna do it?
Yeah. So
First try.
Yeah. I was prepared. Like I said, I wasn't over prepared though. So yeah, all that to say, like it's not my favorite Zelda game, but I did love it, and I was like pretty invested in it the whole time. And I don't know, I'm curious to see where we go from here.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm sure there's the new Zelda game has been in development for over a year at this point, but like who knows? Who knows where the series is going to go from here?
It's very exciting to think of what we could possibly go from here.
Yeah,
I'd like to see like an in-between game that's not like, I mean, I do really like all the like kind of spin-off games and stuff, but I kind of want to see like just like a more low-key, whether it's 2D or like a
new top down
3D, but not classic style 3D.
Yeah, give us the evolution of a classic style Zelda game.
Yeah,
but
something like
I
that.
think, I don't know. In my mind, the way to move forward, what I want to see at least once is like, I think where these games shine the most is the implementation of like the incredibly complex engine that they created.
Oh yeah,
and the game mechanics that all work together to make these like exploration and combat and puzzle solving all feel so much more free. Like take that and focus on that, and I honestly think they can scale it down, because like
they could.
This game, Breath of the Wild, felt ginormous. This game had even more space to explore, and it's like
literally double.
There are merits to that, and it's still sick. Like I love being able to explore this huge, vast array of like the sky and the land and the depths, and there's so many things to see and so many people. But like I personally just kind of want to see a little bit more of like a focused, more compact version of that.
I agree.
Like maybe, and also I think this game and Breath of the Wild both have this air about them of being, they shine a lot in their subtleties. I think there are a lot of very subtle things they do, if it's with the music or the art style or like some of the environmental stuff, that's just very like, not like punch you in the face like, look at this. I want a little more punch you in the face, look at this.
Sure.
Okay.
You know?
I'm down.
I don't know. Just for a nice change of pace. And that actually, well, I want to know what you guys think realistically we're going to see moving forward. But also, one of the main things that I want to know from you guys is like, because I've talked about this with you, where it's like, I don't I feel weird about when they reuse the same engine and keep the same art style and make a game off of that. That's happened several times in the Zelda series where it's like they make a sequel or they whatever it is, but they basically reuse a lot of the same assets. And while this game was fantastic, like I'm ready to get out of Breath of the Wild world.
Give us something new.
Like I'm ready to experience something very different, because even though this game felt incredibly different, a lot of it still did feel reminiscent a lot of Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about changing the engine or whatever, like.
No, yeah, keep the engine.
But like, I can see that, like, yeah, like so much that was cool, like in this one we're talking about like the unique, like the familiar yet unique presentation of Ganondorf, and like that style. We haven't really seen him like presented in this sort of style, and I think that's a strength, because like most Zelda games kind of differ from the others. And so I could see like, yeah, I could see like it hits harder, I think, a little bit when it is like a new look, a new world, you know. So I definitely like the familiarity, like actually like strengthened this game in some ways for me. But I would like to see probably them go like a different vibe for sure. Who wouldn't want that?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for a step forward. I do agree they have an engine that's took a long time to develop.
Yeah. No,
and I don't see them getting away from that, but you can create a new art style around that. You can create a new Hyrule, new characters, new everything based off of the physics engine that they built. And I want to see that. I want to feel something new. And I kind of agree. I'd like something a little bit more condensed, you know? I mean, that's like the charm of a lot of the early 3D Zeldas, is that the world isn't absolutely gigantic. And I do love that about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, because it worked with their story, but I kind of miss the feeling of like Clock Town being a hub where it's bustling. There's so much, it's so dense. There's tons of shops, everything's right there. And you go to these other areas that are a little bit more sparse, you know, you explore them, but you can always come back to this like hub of what feels like everything in one spot. I like that feeling in a Zelda game. And I mean, it's the same in Ocarina of Time. A little less so in Twilight Princess. They and like Wind Waker is pretty scattered, even though it has like Windfall and stuff like that.
I did like coming back to like Lookout Landing, and there'd be new quests and stuff like that. Like this had this.
I wanted more of that. I wanted that feeling, you know?
It's no
when I was saying like
it's never gonna be Clock Town.
The scope of the world, like liking that space in between, I felt like it struck an appropriate balance for me, like between having interesting stuff to find and like just wide open spaces. Then Corey, you mentioned like the sky and the depths, and I was thinking like there was cool stuff to find in those areas, but those were ones that was like, I was like, you know,
there's so much.
I didn't end up like going and exploring the depths as much, I guess you could say, because I was like, yeah, this is a lot. And like there was unique things to find, like there was like all the bases and stuff like that, but that was one I was like, okay, but I'm like, you know, like I'm gonna less run into like any of like important people I meet or like quests I get are mostly gonna be on the surface. And so like even when I think of Tears of the Kingdom now and like the world and what I like about the world, it's like all the surface. So I do think like like the scope is actually maybe a little bigger than like I really connected with, but only because I kind of like chose to just be like, yeah, I'm not like fully gonna, you know, if I was going exploring the light routes later in the game, I was just like flying to them, like building something and flying over there and activating them, and I didn't get all of them. But that was me personally, and I do like there's things I haven't, like I'm finding out about quests that I haven't done. I like finding out about that, but I do think like they could in a future game like maybe make it a little smaller, but I think they could still maintain like huge areas to explore, while like more condensed like civilizations and stuff like that.
I want more bustling towns. Give me a bustling town.
That's what I was gonna say. Is that's the major tonal change that I want? Is like I don't need a post-apocalyptic world. I don't need a world in rebuilding process. Like put me in a world that's well lived in with a lot of people and a lot of towns, and make them all unique and like.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely like to see that, but I also have an idea, like a game concept in my mind that I don't think they'll ever do, but
pitch it.
Right. So you know, Phantom Hourglass is basically just a dream, right?
I want the game
Tears of the Kingdom set between Wind Waker and Spirit Tracks, where it's actually a Link and Tetra journey, just like searching, sailing the seas, searching for a new world, having adventures along the way.
Oh, that'd be fun.
That would be sick. I would love that. Primarily if it wasn't on the DS.
Yeah, it'll be on the new Nintendo Super Switch Pro.
The
That'd be great. DS.
I hope they bring back the DS. That's what I want to happen next.
The Switch is gonna be a
dual screen switch.
Dual screen
switch. You're gonna flip it open.
That sounds like well, it depends. It sounds like a massive blunder, potentially.
Yeah,
but hey, I would be surprised.
You know, with the Nintendo, it's like every other system. Every other system for them is a hit. So, you know, we had the Wii U, then we had the Switch, and now it's got to be some kind of blunder.
This is how they bring back the DS games. They can remaster them for the Switch DS.
The Switch DS.
Fine.
It would be awesome if they did this. It would be awesome if they did it and it was a big hit and people can come back and watch this video and see us being like, that would be so stupid. and it's like the sickest thing. We'll see.
I'm gonna be the one that says that would be awesome.
Okay,
so
okay.
Yeah.
You look smart.
That would be a cool way to give us like an evolution of classic Zelda style. Give us something that's more compact like that. You know?
Whew. This was a long chat.
Yeah.
All of us to say, hey, Tears of the Kingdom, cool game.
It gets 4 thumbs up.
So don't buy it.
Well, only 3, I guess. Oh, there we go.
5.
Oh, there's 5, 12 thumbs up. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on.
My dog's down there. Her thumbs are up.
Yeah, dogs have thumbs.
Yeah.
Perfect.
My dog's been making themselves heard tonight.
They just wanted them.
Trying to get them.
Oh,
well,
man.
we're gonna talk more about the game and stuff. Though,
yeah,
so, you know,
you can't get rid of us that easy.
Yeah, we'll be back for more
talking Tears, baby.
Stay tuned for the full timeline breakdown and implication.
Okay, how do I get him off the screen?
Yeah, boot him. All right, let's get out of here.
All right.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Night. Bye. Time is a construct. It's fake. It's made up. Goodbye.